The Nevada desert is a place that hates you. It does not hate you with the fiery passion of a human rival, but with the cold tectonic indifference of a prehistoric god. It is a landscape of jagged limestone, sun-bleached caliche, and creosote bushes that have spent centuries learning how to survive on nothing but spite and dust. When the sun hangs high over the Mojave, it does not just provide light. It acts as a physical weight that presses down on your shoulders until you feel your very marrow beginning to simmer. This is the stage where Kenny Veach decided to play a game of hide-and-seek with the unknown, and the desert is a master of keeping what it finds. I have spent 20 years staring into the void of missing persons cases, and the silence out there is unlike anything else. It is a thick, syrupy quiet that fills your ears until you start to hear the sound of your own blood rushing through your veins. Kenny Veach was 54 years old, a man whose skin had been cured by the sun like expensive leather. He was a solo hiker, a breed of person that possesses a certain kind of quiet arrogance born from surviving 1,000 miles of isolation. He did not need a compass or a partner, because he believed he understood the rhythm of the dirt and the language of the rocks. He was lean-hardened by the vertical miles of the Sheep Mountains, and he moved through the scrub with the efficiency of a coyote. But even the most experienced predator can find itself outmatched when it wanders into a territory that does not belong to the natural world. Kenny was not a man prone to flights of fancy or ghost stories, which is exactly why what he found out there near the Nellis Air Force Range should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. It all started with a simple comment on a digital video platform, a digital breadcrumb dropped into the infinite static of the internet. Kenny claimed that during one of his excursions he stumbled upon a cave entrance shaped like a perfect capital letter M. It was tucked away in the side of a mountain, a dark slit in the earth that seemed to defy the chaotic geometry of the surrounding cliffs. But it was not the shape that stopped him in his tracks. It was the sensation that emanated from the darkness of that hole. He said that as he approached the mouth of the cave, his entire body began to vibrate with a low-bone, deep frequency that made his teeth ache. It was a physical rejection, a subsonic warning that bypassed his mind and spoke directly to his central nervous system, telling him to run or be undone. The hum he described was not the mechanical drone of a generator or the distant roar of a jet engine from the nearby base. It was something more primal, a resonance that seemed to come from the core of the planet itself. He said that the closer he stepped to that M-shaped opening, the more the vibration intensified until his very vision began to blur. It was as if the air itself were thickening, turning into a gelatinous mass that resisted his movement. His heart rate spiked to nearly 200 beats per minute, not because he was afraid, but because his biology was reacting to a localized distortion in the environment. He backed away, the vibration fading as he retreated, leaving him standing in the blistering heat with a sense of profound existential wrongness. Most people would have taken that experience as a sign to never return to that specific patch of dirt. They would have gone home, hugged their families, and stayed far away from the jagged shadows of the Sheep Mountains. But Kenny was a man driven by a singular dangerous curiosity that acts like a parasite in the brain. He could not stop thinking about that vibration, that hidden frequency that seemed to guard the entrance to something hidden. He went back a second time, armed with a camera and a sense of purpose. But the desert has a way of shifting its features when you are looking for something specific. He could not find the cave again on that trip, but the failure only served to sharpen his obsession. The M cave had become a ghost in his mind, a riddle that he felt uniquely qualified to solve. On November 10, 2014, Kenny told his family he was heading out for a short overnight trip to find the cave once and for all. He took his camera, his 9mm handgun, and enough supplies for a few days in the wilderness. The weather was clear, the sky a bruised purple at dawn that transitioned into a harsh, unblinking blue as the sun rose. He drove his white sedan to the edge of the mountains, parked it near a series of old mine shafts, and stepped out into the dry air. He walked into the furnace with the confidence of a man who thought he knew the rules of the terrain. He did not know that the rules had changed the moment he decided to hunt for a door that was never meant to be opened. The search for Kenny Veach began when he failed to return home, a search that quickly turned into a grim tour of the Mojave emptiness. Volunteers and professionals combed the ridges, their boots crunching on the brittle crust of the earth as they looked for any sign of a human presence. They found his car exactly where he said he would park it, sitting like a bleached bone under the sun. It was locked undisturbed, containing his identification and a few personal items that he had deemed unnecessary for the hike. The searchers pushed deeper into the canyons, their eyes straining against the glare as they looked for a glint of metal or a scrap of fabric. The desert is a cluttered place full of debris and false leads, but it is also a place that can swallow a man whole without leaving a single ripple. It was near one of the many abandoned mine shafts in the area that they found the only clue Kenny had left behind. His cell phone was sitting on a ledge near the vertical drop of a deep, dark hole in the ground. It was not dropped or broken, and it had not fallen from a pocket during a struggle. It looked as if it had been placed there with deliberate care, a digital monument marking the spot where a man had ceased to be part of the visible world. When investigators looked down into the shaft, they saw nothing but the oppressive velvet darkness of the deep earth. They lowered cameras and sent teams down into the belly of the mine, but they found only the cold walls of rock and the dust of decades. There were no footprints leading to the edge, and no signs of a body at the bottom. The discovery of the phone only deepened the mystery and the sense of dread surrounding the disappearance. If Kenny had fallen, his phone would likely have been in his pocket or shattered on the rocks. If he had been taken by a person, the phone would likely have been moved or destroyed to prevent tracking. The placement of the device suggested a ritualistic or highly specific intent, as if Kenny knew he was going somewhere where the phone would be useless. The area around the shaft was a chaotic jumble of loose stone and scrub, yet there was no evidence of a scuffle or a fall. It is as if he simply evaporated, leaving behind a piece of plastic and glass to prove that he had once existed in this dimension. The theories began to swirl like dust devils in the wake of the failed search. Some pointed to the proximity of the Nellis Air Force Range and the secret installations that dot the Nevada landscape. They whispered about high-frequency weapons, cloaking technology, and the things the government hides in the hollowed-out bellies of the mountains. But those who knew the desert felt a different kind of chill. They remembered the vibration Kenny had described, the bone-deep hum that had repelled him on his first visit. There are places in the wild where the laws of physics seem to fray at the edges, creating pockets of reality that do not align with our understanding of space and time. The M Cave was not just a geological formation, it was a threshold, a place where the frequency of the earth shifts into something alien and hungry. I have seen this pattern before in the accounts of those who venture too deep into the silent places of the world. There is a phenomenon often reported by hikers where the forest or the desert suddenly goes completely silent, as if someone has flipped a switch on the natural world. The birds stop singing, the wind dies down, and a crushing sense of being watched settles over the individual. This is the moment when the predator moves in, but it is not a predator of flesh and blood. It is something that exists in the spaces between the atoms, a force that can manipulate the very air you breathe. Kenny had felt that vibration, he had heard the warning, and yet he chose to walk back into the mouth of the anomaly. In the years since he vanished, many have tried to find the M Cave, searching the same ridges and canyons that Kenny traveled. They have found other caves, other mine shafts, and plenty of jagged rocks, but the specific M-shaped entrance remains elusive. It is as if the mountain itself folded the cave back into its stone skin once it had claimed its prize. The desert has a long memory and a short temper, and it does not like to be mapped. When you go looking for things that want to stay hidden, you are inviting the gaze of something that has been watching the slow erosion of the peaks for millions of years. Kenny Veach was just a flicker of light in the vast darkness of the Mojave, and the darkness finally decided to blink. The search for Kenny was eventually called off, leaving behind a family with no answers, and a community with a new legend to whisper about. There is no closure in the desert, only the slow grinding passage of time that eventually turns everything into sand. I think about that cell phone sitting on the edge of the mine shaft often. I think about the last thing Kenny must have seen before he stepped away from his life. Did he see a door opening in the heat haze? Did he hear the hum reach a crescendo that finally felt like home? Or was he taken by something that moved faster than the human eye can track, leaving him with only enough time to set down his phone as a final silent scream for help? We like to think that we have conquered the wild, that with our satellites and our radios we have mapped every inch of the world. But the reality is that we are only guests on the surface of a planet that is full of deep, dark secrets. There are anomalies out there that do not fit into our textbooks, threats that do not have names because we lack the vocabulary to describe them. The Sheep Mountains are a testament to that vast, unmapped territory of the strange. They stand there, silent and indifferent, watching the tiny creatures of the earth scurry about their business until one of them wanders a little too far off the beaten path. Kenny Veach is gone, but the M Cave still exists somewhere in the shifting shadows of the Nevada sun. It is waiting for the next person who is curious enough to ignore the vibration in their bones. It is waiting for someone who thinks they are the master of the wilderness, someone who believes that a map and a gun are enough to protect them from the unknown. If you ever find yourself out there walking among the creosote and the limestone, listen to the silence very carefully. If you feel a low thrum begin to vibrate in your chest, do not go toward it. Do not pull out your camera. Turn around and walk until the neon lights of the city drown out the hum of the earth. The story of Kenny Veach is a chilling reminder that some things are lost for a reason. The lack of a body, the strange placement of the phone, and the terrifying sensory details of the cave all point to a disappearance that defies a simple explanation. It is an unresolved mystery that hangs over the Mojave like a heat mirage, shimmering and distorted. We can guess at the truth, we can theorize about secret bases or dimensional rifts, but the only one who knows the truth is the mountain itself. And the mountain is not talking. It is only humming a low, subsonic sound that is currently vibrating through the soles of someone else's boots as they wander into the deep. This pattern of experts vanishing in familiar territory is a recurring nightmare in the annals of the missing. Consider the case of Michael Fisery, who disappeared in Yosemite National Park in 2008. Michael was an experienced hiker, a man who loved the rugged terrain and knew how to handle himself in the high country. He went out for a hike and simply never came back, leaving behind his backpack and his gear in a way that suggested he had been interrupted or lured away. Despite massive search efforts, no trace of him was ever found, leaving only a void where a man used to be. Like Kenny, Michael was a person who should have been safe in the wilderness, yet the wilderness had other plans. There is a consistent thread in these stories, a sense that the individuals were not just lost but taken by a set of circumstances that we cannot fully comprehend. Whether it is a vibrating cave in Nevada or a silent trail in the Sierras, the result is the same. The earth opens up and then it closes, leaving the rest of us to stare at the spot where a human being used to stand. We are left with the artifacts of their lives, the phones and the backpacks, and the heavy, suffocating weight of the silence. We look for patterns, because the alternative is to admit that we are living on a planet that is far more dangerous and mysterious than we ever dared to imagine. Kenny Veach is a name that will always be linked to the M Cave, a symbol of the price one pays for looking too closely at the hidden parts of the world. His story is a warning, a grim fairy tale for the modern age, where the monsters are not made of fur and teeth, but of frequency and shadow. The desert is still there, stretching out under the unblinking sun, holding on to its secrets with a grip that will never loosen. And somewhere in the Sheep Mountains, a cave entrance shaped like an M is waiting for the next curious soul to step into the vibration and vanish forever. Keep your eyes on the horizon, but be careful what you go looking for in the dark. The unknown is not just a place on a map, it is a predator that is always hungry for the brave.